There are a multitude of movies that a lot of people have never heard of. Some are bad, but some are really, really good and highly underrated because they are so unknown. One of those movies, Anthony DiBlasi's Last Shift. Never heard of him? Well, neither have I before this movie. Someone I follow recommended this movie as being almost a creepy and eerie version of Assault on Precinct 13. It's about a rookie cop who's assigned graveyard shift, first night on the job, in an old abandoned precinct. While at first things are pretty normal, slowly but surely the cop begins to lose her mind to her surroundings. I really didn't know what to expect with this movie going in. I literally heard nothing about this movie before someone recommended it to me. The actors and director are pretty much nobodies, yet this film is dripping with creep factor, suspense, and pure atmosphere. The twists and turns that go through this movie when things are slowly unraveling is enthralling despite it being so creepy to watch. It chilled me to my bones in quite a few scenes. Like there is this one scene that takes place in the dark and you can't see anything. It is suspenseful yet so creepy. The main actress, Juliana Harkavy, plays a great scared person, if that's even a thing. Where people tend to over-exaggerate their emotions when being scared, she really doesn't. She tries to stay level-headed, as a cop of course, but is still scared out of her mind, so the performance works. Plus, another great plus, almost no jump scares. From what I remember at least. It was beautiful. For the very few good horror films Netflix has, this one is marvelous and absolutely filled with dread. A great find for any horror fan. So, I got the idea to do this because apparently Anthony DiBlasi decided to remake his own movie, which isn't too out of the ordinary. I mean, Alfred Hitchcock and Cecil B. DeMille did it. The new film is called Malum, and it received rather mixed reviews. With this, I decided to go back to the original film because I wanted to see if it really stood the test of time, and if I remember it being as great as when I first watched it. And similar with The Final Girls, it has very much aged well. I think the atmosphere and the sense of dread is still spectacular. I watched this late at night, and when I was walking around my humble abode in the dark, there was a sense of fear there. I think Juliana Harkavy still does a great job in the lead role, and has a proper balance of scared and being level-headed with what's going on around her, as I mentioned in the previous review. The escalation is marvelous, how it's so small with lights flickering and little things in the background, to ramping up in a properly paced way. It's a genuinely scary film, which is not something I say very much. The most I see nowadays is creepy, which isn't bad, but rarely do I see a film that is properly scary, and I appreciated that. I liked what the villains were and what they represented in the film in relation to the main character. Usually I'm sick of the personal connection with the main villain trope, but here it worked. If I had anything negative to say with a more knowledgeable set of eyes, I think that the conversation with the hooker was superfluous because we then find out that same information later on from the dispatcher anyway. And it would have been better if we only found out from the dispatcher. Maybe if it were reversed, it would be a bit better, like someone who was there confirming what he was saying from an outside source. But even then, it's still not totally necessary. Another negative I have is that the jump scares were a bit more noticeable this time around. Not a ton, but still a couple that didn't totally need to be there. I'm not going to go too in-depth with this movie because I want as little knowledge from people going into it. It's pretty much free everywhere, although ironically it's no longer on Netflix, so there's next to no excuse not to see it. Now, I haven't seen the new one, however, I do have someone who did see it, my buddy KitchenAid Whiskey Jones, who will talk about his experience with the Last Shift remake, Malum. Alright everybody, this is my friend KitchenAid Whiskey Jones. He is here to talk to us about Anthony DiBlasi's new film Malum, and let's just jump right into it. Alright, Mark, first things first, have you seen the original version of Malum, Last Shift?
No, I have not.
Okay. Did you know anything about Malum going into it, like plot details or actors or director, or the fact it even was a remake?
I remember you told me it was something of a remake. I knew the basics of a plot. Rookie cop stuck in an old abandoned police station, and something demonic going on, something like that. But I mean, I knew like a basic plot outline, but that's about it.
Okay. What is the film's greatest weakness to you? What breaks the film?
I think for me is that just the whole plot is really kind of dumb. The whole plot is really kind of dumb. It's very clumsily put together. What they were trying to do. None of it's scary. Like even the practical effects, which normally for a low budget film are normally pretty good. They went pretty gory with it. But I mean, the practical effects were even just very mediocre. Not very impressive at all. So I think it's mainly the story and the plot, which is really really weak.
So outside of that, what else is bad about the film? Try to avoid spoilers, by the way.
I think the villain or villains just were not very particularly scary. They just came off as kind of hokey and dumb to me, kind of too over the top. I just really, really didn't buy them, and that was a major weakness for me. So, and the effects, the plot, the acting. The acting was not particularly good from anybody. Right. And like I said, the plot was very strangely put together. I mean, because the way the plot all tried to fit together was just kind of really strange. So, yeah.
Did this movie do anything good in your eyes? Like anything like jump out at you? Like, this was okay.
Not really. Not really. Not really. I mean, I think the setting, it was a good idea to have it in a setting in an old abandoned police station. But, I mean, they just really didn't execute it very well.
That's a shame.
The basic idea, was decent. But, I mean, it just was not executed very well.
So, in regards to this film, I've heard, obviously I haven't seen it. That's why I'm interviewing you. I've heard that the social commentary is really bad and preachy. Yeah. Is it as bad as the new Candyman or like typical CW shows, or is it even worse?
I wouldn't say it's that bad, but it's pretty bad. Yeah,
like
it's pretty bad.
Typical, like all
just kind of ham-handed done. Just kind of very ham-handed. I mean, not done particularly well.
It's just like here's the theme. They don't try to do anything like interesting with it.
It's no, not at all.
And it's just like a theme we've seen so many times at this point.
Exactly.
And it's not done in a creative way.
No, not at all.
All right. No. Does it at least make you want to watch the original in the hopes that it's better, like with most original films to remakes?
I'd like to. Yeah, I'd like to watch the original just to see if it's, better. So, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing the original. I kind of do want to see it just to compare them.
So for you, I know this will not be the worst horror film for you of 2023. We both know that. So because of that, is it at least top 5 worst horror films of the year, or even the top 5 worst of the year?
Yeah, definitely top 5 worst horror films at least. Maybe probably even top 3. But I mean, might be even top 5 worst films of the year. Yeah, it might make it.
Like even general, just all films. It might even reach that point.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, top 5 worst out of all films. It could be up there. Yeah.
So even with the fact it's not scary, is it also the cardinal sin of a bad horror movie? Is it boring?
Yeah, it really is. It's boring. It really is. It's just kind of it's like they're being strange for the sake of strange, and it's just not particularly scary. Yeah.
I know you haven't seen the original, but at least like in the way that it's like structured, and you were talking about like the strangeness of it. Can you did you at least kind of detect that they tried to this movie got a higher budget, so they're trying to do more with like the effects or the gore? Did you at least get a sense of that?
Yeah. You could kind of sense they're trying to do that. Yeah. So I'd kind of like to see what they did with the original, so compare, with the lower budget, see if they could maybe were more creative.
Usually restraint is the best case scenario, because I mean, look at Alfred Hitchcock. The man fought censors all the time and created some of the best movies ever made. So,
Yeah, I think of Jaws always, because Bruce the shark, the mechanical shark, did not work at all like they wanted him to. So it actually worked out better for the film.
Yep.
not seeing as much of it.
So finally, when it comes to Anthony DiBlasi's Malum, would you say to the audience watching right now, avoid it at all costs, or would you weirdly recommend it?
I'd say avoid it at all cost. I'd say avoid it. Avoid it like the plague. Yeah.
Just stick
It's
with.
not very good. Maybe if you're just really curious, check it out. But I mean,
stick with Evil Dead Rise and Talk to Me, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Stick with those two.
All right. So that's it. Thank you for your quick thoughts on Malum. Hopefully you can watch the original and appreciate that more. I know my rewatch made me appreciate it a hell of a lot more than I already did. So hopefully you have that going for you in this Halloween season. So
speaking of which,
yep.
New shirt.
So again, thank you. See you later. So that wraps up this video. See you guys in 2 days.